We're live once again on Facebook on the Goal for Side Effects page. I want to welcome everybody to the program. I'm going to speak a little bit briefly. I have John that is going to be with me today, and we're going to talk about his experience and what he did in the military. But I want to talk a little bit about the Goal for illness symptoms, severity, and onset. Okay, it's a cross-sectional survey, and what it is, it's coming out of Georgetown, and I had, for once in my lifetime, John, I had to take notes on this, and you know, because it's important. It's not something. It's a blood test, and they do other tests, but for sure, 100%, you know, they need a lot of people for this research, and me and Denise Nichols talked about this a little bit, and what it is, it's a biomarker. And what it is they're comparing our blood for chronic fatigue syndrome to somebody that is has from Desert Storm to somebody regular to today that has chronic fatigue that wasn't in the military. So, you know, I'm going to post it up after all this is over with. And if y'all want to know more about this, Denise Nichols is in charge of this. You can get a hold of her on Facebook Messenger. For some reason, Facebook shut her down, but her Messenger is working, and I'll post a link up onto my page to where everybody can link on it and do a little bit more and get involved with this research. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get into with John. And how are you doing this evening?
Good, thank you.
Good. Let's let everybody know a little bit about you, what branch of service you were in, when you were in, and stuff like that.
Sure. Rank E5. I was had a 1 year break in service. I was in 80, 40, 88. Had a 1 year break. I wasn't ready for the civilian sector. Went back in 89. Drew the short straw and ended up in Desert Storm. And what I mean by drew the short straw is that I was assigned to 79th Engineer in Karlsruhe, Germany. And they needed to backfill a unit across post to 249th Engineers. And I was one of the people that got picked for that. I kind of laugh at that a little bit because some voices you never forget when you're in the military. And one of them voices is your drill instructor. And when I was with 79th Engineers, not long before I got picked to go, when Desert Storm kicked off and the 249th needed backfill, I heard my old drill sergeant come in. The short of it was I was kind of nagging him to get in a specific part of the company into the heavy equipment side of things. And I think I must have annoyed him. And lo and behold, I end up being one of the guys to backfill 249th, such is life. Anyway, so we deployed from Karlsruhe to Desert Storm in right before Thanksgiving in 90. And got there, and I think we were there probably, I'll say 2 weeks. They called it acclimatization or whatever. I think it was just boiled down to the fact that, you know, we, the soldiers, you know, didn't necessarily have the exact time frame that things were going to be happening. But anyway, so we were in Bahrain. Now, bear with me because like I explained earlier, my memory is not so great. Because of the men and women that I served with in the Gulf War, they weren't people I really knew, because I was new personnel to them. Okay. Obviously we all tend to get along, or at least, tolerate one another. Right. If we don't know one another that well. Anyways, so, we were there when we went in, you know, things were on the ground side of things. You're in the Navy. I mean, I don't know how things were out at sea, and how quickly you acknowledge things happening. I remember very distinctively when things were about ready, as they say, shit hits the fan. Hopefully I can say that all right. It was the middle of the night, and we were told, okay, things about ready to go down. And I remember seeing the aircraft. When I say see, I could hear the aircraft and I could see their lights go out. And then all of a sudden you were hearing all kinds of stuff. And we had MLRS set all around us. I was attached. We were part of the 249th Combat Heavy Engineer units unit was attached to the 1st Infantry Division out of Fort Riley. I don't know how the hell that works, but we did it. And so since we are construction engineers, we were moving. I mean, I was 51 series construction engineer. At that time, back in that day, we were part of the combat engineer units. Today, it's a 12 series MOS. In my time, it was a 51 series. And of course, now if you say I'm a combat engineer, I bet everybody says, thanks, 12 Bravo. Well, I wasn't a 12 Bravo. I was 51 construction. We were building stuff, and we were real good at blowing up stuff. So as we were going through, one of our main missions was helping out. We had a lot of combat attack helicopters. We were putting down, I want to say it was M9 matting, maybe M10. I'm not sure. I don't recall. It was essentially huge pieces of like fiberglass boarding we were putting down, because obviously you're in the middle of the desert with that rotary, air wash. You're going to blow up a lot of sand, which gets in the turbines. And I don't care what you're operating, whether it's out at sea or not, that sand gets in everything. It just creates chaos. Anyway, one of our missions was to put down a whole lot of that, so these attack helicopters have a place to land and at least minimize the stuff getting into the turbines and whatnot. Things move so quickly, Kevin. To be honest, I mean, do you remember the media perhaps was making a big deal out of the berm that Saddam Hussein put out?
Right.
Do you recall that?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That berm was maybe 5 foot tall. At least that's what I saw. Was it taller in places, other places? I don't know. I remember when we went through that berm. When I say when we're essentially in a convoy, and I'm looking left and we're looking right, and thank God we had tanks, you name it, from various countries, Canadian, France, German, whatever, lined up all the way down this berm. And I remember, I'm not quite sure why we were moving through when they were holding tight. Doesn't that give you a warm fuzzy? Why are combat engineers going through when all the tanks are sitting there? But they're on eyesight. We had a whole lot overhead support. When the MLRSs and all the Apaches and Cobras are going, all I remembered is, thank God they're on our side, because there ain't nothing on that side surviving. It ain't happening.
Right.
You've heard me mention M8 alarms, the chemical detection units.
Yeah.
That the Army and various, I don't know what all branches use it, but they're put on the outer perimeters to sniff the air to determine if there's something bad floating out there. And there was. Ours went off, and in the military, we get very in times of garrison, not in war, we do a lot of repetitive stuff, right?
Right.
And we get really kind of irritated but that all obviously has a purpose. You might not realize it at the time, but it has a purpose, and that purpose is to react. You don't think, you just do. It's kind of like when you're driving down the road, somebody swerves in your line, you don't think about it, you just move, right?
Yeah.
I guess one time in the middle of the night, I remember those alarms because they have a very distinct, annoying, for obvious reasons, sound. And all you could hear was a lot of muffled voices. That's because everybody's gone in protective mask. And it was kind of amazing to me. I think it was less than 15 minutes they gave the all clear. Now, how in the bloody hell do you give an all clear in 15 minutes? Granted, air's moving. You're in the middle of the desert, and there's exactly nothing around you. So perhaps, the cloud or whatever moved back quickly. But I remember that very distinctly. I remember, and I still don't know the reasons why, burying the deceased of the enemies when we would go through the tanks that would get blown up by our own, the A10s. I mean, whatever's out there that's causing chaos to take care of the enemy. We would have, for whatever reason, we would be designated to go bury these bodies. And there wasn't a lot of bodies. When I say not a lot, I mean, you had a tank with, and I'm not sure of what the ordinance was, but not only blow it up, it gets really hot, like really quick. I wasn't an ordnance guy. All I know is that the bodies on those tanks were charred. I mean, clearly. And why would we be told to go remove the bodies from the tank and try and dig them, put them in the ground? You explain to me that, and we'll both understand.
Right. And that's what the guy Roy was talking about. It didn't make sense to him neither. He was like, "Why are we burying the enemy?" They were like, he was like, "That's their job."
Right.
And
Kevin, because we were exposed to so much stuff over there, I remember after making a best attempt, and we're an engineer unit, we have the stuff to dig down into the earth. But anybody that was on the ground that needed to dig down or was told to dig down understands that ground got really hard in a really short. I mean, we're talking when you got backhoes and heavy junk that can't hardly penetrate that ground. They say, like I explained, we were told to dig foxholes. And I laughed. I'm like, dig a foxhole? We got the freaking first idea. What the bloody hell are we going to do? A bunch of grunts behind the first ID, a bunch of engineer guys. We're going to dig a foxhole? Really?
Right.
I mean, you do the level best. I mean, you dig down what far. We never obviously used them. We were moving too damn quick to do any of that. But you do what you're told, right? You don't sit there and question orders, because that doesn't exactly go over too well in the military.
Not at all. Not at all.
Do what the bloody hell you're whatever that rank is, you're wearing on your helmet. You can get away with so much. If you're a peon, well, guess what? You get the shit work. Make a little higher, life gets a little better. But anyway, I was telling you about the enemy. One of the things, I think, we were decontaminating the equipment that we buried these enemy soldiers with. And I remember very distinctly opening some of this crap and getting an instantaneous headache. I mean, just like right now. And I'm like, what the bloody hell? I can't describe it to this day for some reason. When you go down, a store aisle, and you might, whether it's perfume or laundry detergent, I'm super sensitive to that stuff.
Right.
My wife knows I ain't going down there. And if I do, it's going to be really quick, which sounds really trivial, but that's one of the things, your sense of smell, your activity to things. That was one of the instances that really sticks out in my mind. So burying the dead, dealing, Diane, I have the gal that we were speaking about earlier. I'm terrible with names.
Denise, yeah.
Denise, my apologies. Denise had lost my train of thought. Anyways, the things that happened to us and the things that we are exposed to has creeped up over time. When you go, when you really sit back and think about it, I was my wife and I were talking, I think I was 26 years old at the time. And you're asked, well, what do you remember? We always remember the really bad stuff, right? I mean, that sticks on our mind. Don't necessarily want to share every bit of the information, but you remember it.
Right.
Okay. You remember the good times before, my therapist even said, well, it's normal to think about the bad stuff. Okay. I was asked at one CMP exam, well, when did this bad stuff start happening? Like, I wasn't even home a week. And at that given time, I just thought, well, We just came back from the desert. We were doing a lot of stuff, being really physical. Maybe my body's just maybe not doing what it should be doing. And you kind of blow it off.
Right, right.
Because when you're younger and you don't have somebody above you or somebody that's been through such thing, because when we came back, like I was telling you earlier, you were explaining to me, I didn't understand why we left everything there. It didn't register to me. Why did that unit deactivate, leave everything in theater? I understand now, because of the chemicals and everything else and the sand and yada, yada, yada. Didn't know it then. I get it now.
Right.
And back to the exposure of all this thing, too numerous to pinpoint. That's why they put a cover blanket on our illness as just one flat statement, right? They don't say it's specifically due to this or specifically due to that. But so that happened, and I came back, and a lot of men and women out there of our age, maybe even earlier, maybe even the 40s. I don't know the complete broad range of age categories, but I remember things in my body. Whether I'd get headaches, the body aches, the abdominal problems. We're like, what? And we're digging and digging and digging. And I say, when we're digging, all of us are trying to figure out why.
Right. That is a great point.
So, and every one of us, everyone, since I first listened to your first podcast, however, when I came across it on Facebook, each time I listened to individuals, it's like, wow, okay, it's the same thing. All of our body chemistries are different. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. You know what I'm saying? Everybody reacts to things differently. Our bodies are all different. None of us are the same. And that being said, when Denise made a comment on your last podcast, I was like, she's got a really excellent point. She made the comment about when you go to your provider and you're explaining what's going on in your body and what your problems are. Don't yell at the provider. It's because they don't know. Like Denise said, they weren't trained to try and figure out what's going on with us. You got to provide them information, And I actually said that to my provider. Was it just yesterday? I was going in for the Battlefield Acupuncture, trying to help myself with the abdominal pain. And I explained to them what Denise had said, and they're like, yeah, one of the providers hadn't seen any other Gulf War vets. The other provider had, and she said that, yeah. And I asked her, so what do you think, Doc? I mean, how much of us have a lot of the same thing? She goes, oh, y'all got a lot of the same thing, but medically it don't make sense. And I'm like,
thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Bingo.
And now here's one for you. And Denise made a great point when me and her were talking earlier. Like you said, when you go and you talk to your providers, you don't bring up you have Gulf War illness or you have Gulf War side effects or anything. You tell them what the problem is. Tell them you're out in Desert Storm, other guys, maybe all that. But she did. She made a good point. Well, I have Gulf War illness. They're like, well, what the hell is Gulf War illness? Because there's no such thing of it. Even though we know we're all having the same point. But it brings me back to when you were talking about smell. And somebody on here, and Sean, that is the best thing, because this is exactly what I was thinking. The smell is your trigger. Mm-hmm. And it is. And thank God I cannot smell anymore. I can't. Ever since I got COVID, I lost my smell. And thank God. Because, poor everybody else, because, but I literally, I can't smell. I can't smell anything. And they're like, well, it will come back. But I had problems smelling I think in the beginning because I had a lot of sinus problems. But the headaches, I never experienced that. Now, I do know a lot of guys who have. And I think when you were touching the point on with the headaches and then the memory and everything, I don't get headaches. My memory is so foggy. I mean, there was one guy on our ship. He was telling stories of when we were over in Desert Storm, how uh, Iran shot missiles at us. And I'm like, looking at my wife. My wife's like, well, did that happen? I'm like, shit, I don't know. I don't remember that stuff. Right. And a memory is a big problem right now. And of course, I have MRIs done on it and everything. And, you know, they say there's nothing wrong, but I know there's something there. It's either the medicine I'm taking and or something. I mean, they diagnosed me with essential tremors, and they said, oh, it's common in most people. Some people exhibit it more. Well, let me tell you, in the last 3 months, I noticed my head shakes. I mean, I hope none of my customers are listening to this.
Well, it's, as far as the smell thing, a couple times in the last couple of months, literally, I've walked into the kitchen after my wife, we have a gas stove, and she lit a burner. Maybe the burner was struggling to turn on, and I could smell that gas. And I walked in the house because our kitchen's right as soon as you walk in, and I smelled that, and I just, wow, I almost went into panic mode, and I don't know why. I was like, oh, I can't be in here. And my brain was just, I mean, I can't explain it, Kevin. It just, why would a gas smell I don't know. We don't have an answer. That's part of it. And all the men and women that have been to the Gulf and or to Afghanistan and Iraq, you're right there. It's in the ground. I shared with you, I'm kind of maybe going to go touch base on just a little bit of a different topic. It's the same topic, but different.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have an individual, or there's an individual we've been in contact with in Mississippi, trying to get some answers for this fellow vet, right? And I talked to Social Security Administration today, and it was by chance that the individual I was talking to was a retired Army individual. I think he was captain. I think he was enlisted first and went to the OCS and got captain and was medically discharged for some things. We didn't get into specifics, but this gentleman was very informative, and you glean bits of information about what can help another individual. I'm service connected disability. I'm at the point where I don't need to prove to the VA anymore what's going on with me. And I remember getting that information from my attorney, and I was like, there would be men and women out there that might just be ecstatic because, okay, we've now got service connection, things are being taken care of. But the way when I say we, us veterans are wired, we want to keep doing, keep digging, keep trying to figure things out, which I still do. But when I was awarded that, I felt a little bit defeated. I'm like, okay, so you said now I'm service connected. And I wasn't really, was I happy? There was a small part in my body that goes, okay, obviously none of us are made of money.
That's right.
And the military certainly isn't the place that the vast majority of people are going. Can you make a little bit of money? Sure. I mean, it depends. We all have these things called bills, right?
Right.
But anyways, back to that conversation with the Social Security person, he gave me information that I've already transferred to the individual we're trying to help, about where to get your DD214. Something as simplistic to the vast majority of us isn't so simplistic to somebody who is fighting the battle to try and get acknowledgement, to try and get the medical help, try and understand what's going on in their body. And there's, as you very well know, there's a lot of men and women out there that have things going on that they're being told by a provider, this is your problem, when that's not their problem. But because they don't know, then you're going based off their professional, what they're trained. I mean, that's why you go to a provider, right? Because they're the doctors. They're supposed to know this stuff.
Right.
But like Denise says, bitch, moan, gripe, complain. What's that going to accomplish?
Nothing. And it don't. Now, here's something for everybody that you topped on. This individual that he's talking about, of course, we're definitely not going to use any names, because he contacted me and we were talking about it. It's when a outside person that's never been in the military is trying to help their loved one who is in the military. It's a very complex. The VA does not move at the speed of a regular. Everybody who's listening to this that's in the military knows it's a hurry up and wait situation. And I explained that to her. But this is the point that this is where some of it needs to change. When you have a loved one that is in need of health care and aid right away, they need to make a special provision in our government with our congressmen that they immediately get thrown in front of the line to at least get home health care in. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, when you go to your doctors, one of the things she should have done, and which I'm going to talk to her about this tomorrow, is I wasn't even thinking about my own father-in-law. Even Medicaid, Medicare, any of them, when you go in there and when you're on Medicare, they have programs in there too to bring somebody in to help, to start off. And they need to go about that way too, when they're above 65 and above, once you file for all that stuff. But let me tell each and every one of y'all, it's no different. That I just learned this today. In the state of Texas, in Houston, when you go down and a loved one dies that's been in the service and you want to bury them, it is not free anymore. Did you know that? No, it is not free. I learned that today. It costs to bury a loved one in a cemetery, like a national type cemetery with full honors, because
it costs to have you buried.
Yes, it does. And there's a waiting list. You have to fill out the paperwork beforehand.
Unfortunately, I believe that, but I wouldn't have guessed it would have cost to bury you in a cemetery for people in the armed forces.
Right.
Like,
well, the burial spot is free. But for them to move them, like transfer, is free. They allot you money for it, pretty much, and the headstone, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But to do the service there, they charge you. I'm like, how do you charge a veteran at a veteran cemetery? And so I'm going to do some investigating on this, and I mean, my ass is going to be calling our congressman. That's just like earlier when I talked about Denise's study. In order for us veterans to help ourselves and to help each other, we got to get a hold of our congressmen and our senators, even your state local reps. And that's the fight. I mean, the one thing that I have noticed, that a lot of people are going to be getting out of Congress this next round, and new people are coming in. Well, I'm not waiting. I want them to come on this podcast. I want them to tell us, okay, I'm running in Kevin Brady's spot. So this is what I want to do. Okay, don't tell me. What are you going to do for us too? Because it's out there. We got the information. We know we've been exposed to chemical weapons. We know the anthrax shot was experimental on us. We know the P-TAPs. We know all this stuff. So how do we fix it?
Yeah, I talked to the gal that we were, excuse me, in communication with to help her father. We were talking. I said, you know, she kind of explained some of the things that you two have talked about, and saying, you know, talk to your congressman, talk to your senators. And I kind of explained what I had done, because I use the political forum, which is just, it's ridiculous that you got to go that route. But it works. I'm not going to say everybody, you know, obviously the congressmen and senators, this gal that we spoke with, and she wholeheartedly agreed. I don't care what side of the political fence you're on, do your damn job. You know, you have a job. You were put into position to help the American people. I don't want to hear all this side or that side. What isn't this is about? We, the men and women, were put in harm's way. Now, granted, we raised our hand, and ain't none of us looking for any kind of pity. We're looking for acknowledge us, give us the help that we got coming to us. You know, the monetary side of things, obviously, okay, because does money make the world go round? No, but it certainly makes it a little easier, right? But most of us would say, you know what, keep the damn money, fix what's going on with me, okay? And unfortunately, like Denise kind of explained, that takes a whole lot of jumping through hoops.
It does.
And it's ridiculous. And I know, like back when I said I did use senators. Now, for me, the senator, I bugged the shit out of a couple of senators, but I got responses. And then I got a call from a VA apologizing for essentially not doing things quick enough. And I was like, okay, so let me back up here again. As we're all discovering that we have issues, and we're going to the providers, and this is what we got in. So I live in Iowa, and probably arguably one of the best hospitals in the state of Iowa is at the University of Iowa. I went to this university multiple times for problems I was having abdominal pain. Had no idea. My son, who's a registered nurse, went with me to one. I don't recall at that time if he had graduated. He's got his Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, and then went later to get his RN. But he says, Dad, maybe you have this thing called MALS, which is an acronym for medium I'm gonna screw it up. Medium arcular ligament syndrome or something. It's kind of an unknown disease. Even this university wasn't really familiar with it. Anyway, where I'm going with this is my son threw some information at him, and they tested for me, and they go, wow, maybe you do have this. But they didn't want to say for certain. But I didn't meet. I'm a big guy. I'm like 6'2", 265. I'm not a small person. Okay, so I didn't meet the criteria that most of these MALS patient has. Most of MALS patients get very thin because of the way things are in their body, and they can't eat, and there's causes a lot of pain. And we're like, okay, so that's kind of, I had the lead gastrointestinal person within this university, the lead guy. He was an older gentleman. He's looking at my son after my son, and we got all this. He says, I don't know. And I'm like, well, crap. Okay. I was thinking I needed surgery. He wasn't really certain. He didn't really want to make that call. Okay. That's really not an answer. That's a throwing your arms up. I don't know. I accept you don't know. You don't know. Okay. At least he was willing to tell me that, because like Denise says, he hasn't seen it. There's such a small percentage of us that we're in, give or take around 700,000 people deployed to the Gulf back then.
Yep.
Okay. That's a very minute population within our country. Okay. And so is it fair to say that the provider, even if they are in their 50s or 60s, necessarily no? No, it's not fair, because we're such a small, and as we've heard from Denise, and I didn't know, holy smokes, a lot of studies have been done clearly on this. But back when I was, you're back in 2016, 17, 18, when I was trying to be diagnosed, nothing. Have a clue.
Wow.
And mine, I thought for sure when I went to my first CMP exam, Kevin, I thought for sure I was gonna, I was sitting there talking to the gal, and I thought it was going to be a no-brainer, no issues, wasn't going to have any difficulty. They're going to say, oh yeah, you definitely got problems with your abdomen, because that was my major complaint. There was other issues. They rated me. They rated me as 0%. Isn't that a stupid? It's a rating, as you very well know. But they rated me at 0% for abdominal. I'm like, are you really? Yeah, really? Oh, okay, thank you.
Right. But here's the thing. Like, I don't mind calling them out. VES is the worst of them all. Veterans Evaluation Services. I'll say it right out. I mean, I have the video. If any of the congressmen want to listen to this podcast, I have the video of the guy literally saying, you need to file for this, you need to file for that, but don't tell the VA I'm telling you, and file for that. You'll get connected. And he turned me down a month before that for all them problems. And that's why I don't understand. It's like, wait a second. Y'all say these are presumptives. It's down in my chart. I have them.
Presumptive, yeah.
That's absolutely right. And everything. And so, now LHI, I'm totally impressed with them. They did an evaluation, and they were like, my goodness, you have this, and this, and we don't understand why you were ever disapproved of this stuff. And they got it all approved. And it's not like I'm over there going, look, I don't want compensation. But then I learned a valuable thing from them. If you're rated at 100%, your spouse is taken care of. If you're rated less than 100%, your spouse is not taken care of.
Okay, maybe I didn't know that.
That's right. And they said you have to be 100% in order for them to get some kind of compensation if you were to pass away. And I'm like, so if I'm 80%, they pretty much get nothing. She's like, yep, they don't get anything.
Now, Kevin, you brought up a good point right there about the spouses. And I guarantee, because I worked at the Iowa Veterans Home in Marshalltown, Iowa. Phenomenal place. Don't have a bad thing to say about them. Phenomenal group of people, great food, great place. Just fantastic. The reason I'm saying it is because one of the things a lot of whether the husband or the wife served in the military, and it comes to a point where that individual who served is rated, now you said, I don't know, before I say this, I'm not 100% sure, but as far as if that individual needs to go into a nursing facility,
they're taken care of.
They're taking care of it, whether you're the spouse or the actual veteran. They're taking it. And Kevin, we had people come into that veterans home that had nothing, zero, zip. Now, I know there's some financial things that have to be met. I don't know all of that, but there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that I don't have the means to take care of my loved one. They need more than I can provide them. Check into the VA nursing home. Do I want to live in a nursing home? No. I want to be comfortable with a roof over my head, and most of us think of a nursing home, maybe it's not a positive thought, but I can tell you here in the state of Iowa, that nursing home is phenomenal. It is just that. It's a place to live, and it's a very comfortable place to live. And they take, I have nothing negative to say about it. And here again, there's a lot of men and women out there that served that may be in the position to put their loved one in a nursing home, which I can't imagine what that would be like mentally, but it's available. Let's put it that way.
That's right. That's right. And as I tell my kids, I don't want to be a burden. Put me in a nursing home. You know, I can't say on the air what my daughter said, but it was a joke, but it was pretty damn funny. You know, she was like, "Dad, they have a lot of STDs there." I was like, "Of course, put me in there." And you know, but that was a joke, everybody. It was humor. Don't cut me off, Facebook. But anyway, but over time, like where I live, the facilities here are great. I know, as far as I'm concerned, I want my family set. I want them to be able to, if something would, God forbid, happen to me tomorrow, I want my family to say, you know what, Dad left us in good standings, not bad standings. Now, I know that may sound a little bit off subject, but it's not. Because we don't know. I mean, a lot of Gulf War veterans have died. A lot of them have. And you know, the other day I heard somebody say 22 a day has dropped down to 20 a day. You know, for the
one's too many.
That's right. And that's the part I don't understand. Why can't they let me run the VA for 1 month? And I swear to you, it will be totally changed. The first thing I would do is, if you can't get these veterans in, treat them right, get your ass out the door. The second thing I would do is saying, if anybody needs to jump at the head of the line financially, it's anybody that is completely disabled, that needs financial help. We're going to be there for them. The second, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Kevin, regardless of what state you live in, you know, we hear it all the time, especially during the times of you're coming up on a holiday, the homeless veterans, a lot of them themselves, maybe they don't have access to the podcast, but maybe it's one individual out there that knows this homeless person is a veteran and they're living in a tent, or worse, living under a piece of cardboard. You can take that individual, and I know this for a fact because I was one of the guys who would go in when these people would come into the veterans home, and we would have to, you know, make sure everything on the maintenance side of things was safe. Everything was functional. What they brought in, everything was good to go. You know, something simplistic as electrical cords, yada, yada, yada. But these men and women didn't have anything. But if there's one person out there that sees this and gets the information that, hey, he's a veteran or she's a veteran, and I could take him over there, there's room in these veterans' homes.
Yes.
I know there's, I don't know as I'm sitting here the numbers, but I know there's room for many veterans to go in and get the help in the state. Our government will provide for them. So that's important.
And churches do a lot for veterans too. I mean, I guarantee you, if anybody walked into my church, I know my pastor, and I know everybody that I go to church with would accept this person with open arms and help him. They would get everything he needs and everything. And that's why it's important to be a part of a family, a church family. That's why this group here, I want to be a family. We can help veterans. We can spread the message. We can get the word out there. Let's start doing what's right. Let's don't go backwards. I mean, the Vietnam veterans, and let me tell you, I have 2 uncles who passed away. And my uncles were awesome. And, but I know what they died from. Agent Orange got them. And they should have to back pay the family.
So we move forward when you brought up other veterans and so I'm gonna spin backwards, going back to when I left the golf, and give a little bit more input on my experience as far as my experience in learning that I had problems that was related to the golf, because that in itself is what a lot of the men and women don't know. Like you said, you can't go onto your provider and say, hey, I got GW, I got golf illness, or whatever the term is they use at that given point in our political arena. But if that man or that woman goes in and has things that can't be pinpointed, and then they say, but I was in the military and I was in Persian Gulf. If they know enough to say that, because a lot of men and women like myself, I'm one of them, I wouldn't have put that 2 and 2 together. It's having that information. The gentleman I spoke to at the Social Security Administration, he was super nice guy, giving me a lot of information. And we were talking about records keeping. And I actually called him because I wondered if I was entitled to a little bit more money through a particular program. And we went through things. And I told him, I said, I have a friend here that her son recently went in the military. Happened to be the Army, and great young man. He's out on the East Coast, and just finishing up with AIT. So the Advanced Individual Training. I don't know what they call it in the Navy or Marines, Coast Guard. I don't know what they call it there, but in the Army, they refer to it as Advanced Individual Training. So in other words, you're training for your job that you're going to do in the military. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I told my friend, and I actually messaged the individual that's in the military. I told him, I said, listen, as you're going through the military, I hope you never have to serve a day in combat. Hope it never happens. But unfortunately, with the way our world is today, it's more likely than not that you will, unfortunately. And I said, keep track of your records. Like the gentleman on the phone today, he was in administration for a portion of his career, and then in artillery, and he kept stuff in various ways. But he, like you and I know, you keep the original documents, right?
Right.
Don't give that stuff away. When I say don't give it away, don't, make sure at the very least you have a copy. At the least, say, don't hand it to some, well, we got to have this. Okay, fine. Here, I'm going to stand right here. Give me a copy back. Give me the original back. Okay. And anyway, I told this to this young soldier, and he's going to be going to Korea. Okay. Not the most stable place in our world. Not the most unstable, but not the most stable.
Right.
Right. So anyway, there's that information, keeping track of your records. And those of us that served in the Gulf, back to how I came to understand that what I was exposed to was causing me issues. I have things, I'm starting to cough a lot more. I don't know why. Just in the last couple of months, I will have shoulder pains, and I go on to various websites that are for the men and women during that service period. And a lot of them say, well, check this or check that. The whole idea is well, what works for you? Okay, I've tried it. Thank you. What works for you? Oh, I haven't tried that. I don't think about that. Okay, perfect. I'll go with that. Try it. It's either going to work or it's not. I will admit that my patience level for trying new things isn't very long because I've had so many disappointments. This thing called the Battlefield Acupuncture, which is like 5 little tiny needles in the ear, worked great for about 6 months. And now, here in the last couple of months, it's not being as effective.
Yeah. See, and this is the other thing too. It's like, I just learned 3 weeks ago that you can have acupuncture. I never knew that. But I mean, when we talk about when you walk into the VA center, to the hospital, or to your own clinic, and you're going to specify everything that's wrong to you, even if it's your big toe is bothering you, express it.
Yep.
3 days later, everybody listen to me that goes to the VA. 3 days later, check the report and see if they put it in there. That was the problem I was having. They would sit there and say, my vital signs, this. And I'm like, hell, they didn't even check any of that. I'm like, my blood pressure, I know at that time I was pissed off, was no way it was 120 over 80. But they would put down, like 120 over 80 and all this, but none of it was true. Guys, our congressmen, our senators, I'm going to emphasize this probably every time I get on the air. That's what they're there for. They're there for you. We don't work for the congressmen. Unless you're in the military, then yes, you do. But I don't. But that's what the hell they're there for. And that's what they need to start doing. And I mean, a guy once told me, he said, when a person gets out of the military, they build themselves up in the military. You make something out of yourself. When you get out, you're nobody. Everybody comes home with a form of depression. May not be PTSD, it may not be this. It could be PTSD, or it could be just plain depression. You should always find a way to get help. Always find a way to get help. Talk to your loved ones. But that's where like Camp Hope. Have you ever heard of Camp Hope?
I have not.
It's really ran on the Michael Berry show. He's part of it. The veterans come home, they're starting to help them more. And these guys, there are people making an effort. But why does it have to be outside groups? Why do outside groups have to raise money? I mean, think about that for a second. Why do outside groups have to raise money for people who are defending your right to have freedom of speech, all that, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way up?
Yeah, Kevin, the depression thing. All of us men and women that have been in battle. I expressed to you that it's really difficult to talk about when you're in theater and what happened, because it's upsetting, it's frustrating. You've lost people, you've seen some really nasty stuff, and you don't really feel like talking about it. And, as I grow older, I'm 57 years old now. And this last Veterans Day, it sucked for me. And I explained to my provider, I explained to my wife, I said, I don't know why this particular time was so bad. But what did help me is when I listened to your show and I listened to the Marine you had on and listened to the hell that he went through post Gulf War and the things that he was diagnosed with and what he had done to me. Don't get me wrong. I felt terrible that he had gone through that. You and I have talked about this a little bit.
Yes.
That gentleman went through bloody hell and was treated very badly. And that helped me. Like my wife put it well. She said to me, she goes, well, it probably lets you know that you're not out there alone. I said, you know what? I think you're exactly right. And that, for example, is why one of our fellow veterans who's trying to get help, his daughter's trying to get help right now. I'm hoping that I'm given the opportunity to talk to that gentleman, because those of us, if you weren't there, if you didn't put on the uniform, you don't understand. You can empathize, but you don't know.
That's right. And it pisses you off. It does. It's a bunch of shit. I'll say it for you. What Greg went through, I'll tell every single one of y'all. I don't care what he went through. Oh, hell no. Hell no. And when they threatened him that he would lose his benefits, and I've heard it said, do not make an enemy out of the VA. Oh, hell no. Go ahead and piss all of us veterans off and see if we won't be standing there at that VA. Because I'm telling you, if he was to lose his benefits or any of that stuff, I'm there. I'll be there. I'll stand by his side. I will podcast about it. But this is what I want this podcast to be. For us to come on and help each other, talk with each other. I mean, and God, I'm glad my wife is in school right now, because I'm about to say something that, I mean, it caused an argument. I told her the best 4 years of my life was when I was in the Navy. And I mean, it wasn't this marriage. It wasn't your kids, and which I know my son's white. I love my kids dearly. My kids are my life. My wife is my life. But the 4 years that I spent in the Navy, I built a bond with these guys. There isn't one I don't talk to. Not one I do not communicate with. And almost 90% of us are going through the same problem. But when you sit there and you watch your fellow veterans keep going through this and through this and through this, you hurt for them. I mean, if anybody who watched it last week could sit there and tell me on Veterans Day that you did not tear up when he was talking, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you. But man, it took everything I had not to go through that screen and just give him a big old hug and say, but I mean, I'm telling you, I talked to him. I helped him out on Monday. I got with him. And that's what I'm saying. Even if the veterans don't want to come on here and tell their story, but man, they feel like they're lost, man, call me.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Send a message. Say, Kevin, I need to talk.
There's a lot to be said for you don't know what you don't know. And we're trying to get answers. And I'm not saying there's not answers out there like Denise has, dug up. There's a lot of testing that goes on. And some people say, I don't want to be a freaking test subject. I get it. But that being said, if a test is what gets that individual acknowledgement and help, then do the damn test. I'm not saying it's easy. Would I put myself doing tests right now? I think I probably would a little bit reluctantly. And I say that because it's like, we all feel like we've already been guinea pigs, and you want to guinea pig me again.
Right.
Well, if you want help, and I don't mean to sound crass or anything, but back to got to jump through hoops. You got to tell them what they need to hear. You got to presumptive. You were there. Here's my DD-214. It's right on there. Got to have the DD-214. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. Do you have to? I mean, you have to have that in order to prove that you were in country, right? At the time.
Damn right.
Yeah. So
damn right. Yeah.
I mean,
it's dumb because they already know you're in country, but this guy's already set up in a VA. How in the hell do you not know that he's in country? Denise is begging for us three to talk. Is it okay if I bring her in?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, Denise is like the mama bear of us. It's true, and it's true. I'm gonna bring her in. Hopefully, I can get her in. Can you hear it ringing? I'm gonna bring her in for a second.
Hello, Kevin.
Hello. Say hi, John.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Can you hear her?
Yes.
I'm gonna take it off my earpiece and I'll be better. Okay, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, we can hear you great.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's several things that came up in the conversation, and before y'all get offline, I want to bring them up. Okay, Kevin, I've sent you pictures of an excellent book that you can get. It's called The Federal Benefits for Veterans and Veterans, Dependents, and Survivors. And everything they say in here is on vets. VA veteran page. But it's all in a booklet, and it's put out every year. It's an annual pamphlet. It's called the Federal Benefits for Veterans, Dependents, and Survivors. And the VA
where do you get
pamphlet
it,
number
Denise?
may change by year, but 80-16-01.
Where do you get it? Where?
Well, I picked them up, but it was up in D.C. and some of the representatives' offices. But you can go online and search for it, and you can come up and you can probably see everything on, the computer that's in the book, or you can get a copy.
Okay.
Either way,
So
online.
Hold on.
If you're old school and maybe you're not the most computer literate person, where can you walk in and get a copy? Can you go into your local, I don't know, VA branch or whatever, the Legion or something? Can you get a copy there?
Possibly, or with your state Department of Health. I just took a picture of all these things and I sent it to Kevin by messenger. So it's pictures of them, of old ones. But anyway, like California has their own California Veterans Department of Veterans Affairs. So some of the states, I know Florida does too, puts out their own. Probably has more about state stuff too, because you can get state benefits also.
Okay.
And that's important to know. Okay. Now, the other thing that came up, and I was trying to run around, you ought to see me digging in my old antique bookcase, but I couldn't think of my words. And when you talked about your smelling things, that was a normal thing, and it should have impacted us then, because you've got cranial nerves. There's 12 cranial nerves up in the brain. They control your hearing, your eyesight, your smell, your taste. All that is the cranial nerves.
Now, okay? Kevin, in 5 minutes, I want you to tell me that back, Kevin, because I'm going to forget what she just said in 30 seconds.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I will.
Anyway, it's the smell is the olfactory nerve. Okay.
Olfactory nerve. Olfactory nerve.
Okay.
Right. And so one of our good guys out in California that worked with Torrance VA, I got to know him well. He came all of a sudden to one of the meetings we had up in Seattle. It's a long story, but anyway, and he becomes an expert in neurology. Okay. He went to the Hill with us. He testified with Shays. I mean, he did a lot. But anyway, he said, Denise, that's how I know if they've been exposed, because they have olfactory hallucinations. There's other names, medical names for it. But that shows you have brain damage to your cranial nerves.
Huh.
And this connects with what I've been telling y'all on the blood being thick blood. And your oxygen cannot get to where it needs throughout the body, which includes your cranial nerves.
Okay, hold on.
Are you
hold on,
following
wait.
me?
Hold on, Denise. Did you hear that? John, did you hear what she just said?
I'm going to ask that RN to repeat herself because I'm sure it makes complete sense to her. I'm going to ask Denise, can you dumb that down just a little bit more for me?
Okay, dumbing it down. First of all, we found out that we have thick blood. Okay, that's one of the things I got us started on, and have research papers out on it. Okay, if your blood is thick, your oxygen cannot move through to where it needs to get. Okay, which includes all parts of the body. Okay, so if you've got cranial nerves, 12 of them, one of which is your smell, olfactory, and your taste is another one. Okay, different name. And the terminology that Dr. William Bonsweiger out in California used is, Denise, just tell them they're having olfactory hallucinations. There's other names for it medically, but it means that your olfactory nerve has probably been affected by lack of oxygen. Okay. And it doesn't mean that the other cranial nerves could be involved, or parts of your brain or other parts of your body.
Okay. He's got a question.
Okay.
Okay. My question is this. Now, you just said, Denise, that, okay, so I have to wear a CPAP. They told me that I stopped breathing during the night. That is something to come up. Is now that is not service connected. At least it's not.
Okay. Whoa. There's one way I know of that people have gotten. There's been a research study on sleep apnea connected with PTSD. So you would follow it secondary to PTSD.
That's right. She's 100% right on that. I know that for a fact.
That's one way. I'm not saying it goes through flying colors, but I know that there's research studies that you can include when you tell them about your claim and what you want them to look at. Okay. Now, the other thing is, since we just got the three respiratory presumptives.
Yeah.
That just came through the last couple of months. Okay, that's sinusitis, different things. If you don't get it by PTSD and you get your claim through for one of the three respiratory, hey, file it secondary to the respiratory problems.
Okay.
Okay.
That hasn't been researched out, but I'm just saying, if it's respiratory and oxygen and sleep apnea is, that problem.
And he has a real quick question.
Okay.
Okay. You're talking about respiratory, Denise. So like I explained a little earlier in the podcast, here recently, let's say the last couple of months, I'm having this coughing thing, just kind of came up out of the blue. Is that, and I'm going to make my doctor aware of it. And I'm not saying that it's because of that, but your suggestion, it's been proven that the respiratory is part of this?
Not all respiratory. There's 3 they added. Okay.
Okay.
And I can send that, and we can post it. Kevin can post it.
Yeah, I could post it because
that's the last 3 that was added. And I just saw today on military.com that they're going to add some more in 2022 for us with toxic exposures. So, and that's the VA doing that, not by bill or legislation or law.
Oh, good. So good for
our
the VA.
new secretary with the VA was with Obama before in the White House. Okay. And he is doing everything he can. Honest to God, he is trying more than any others that I've seen up there for 30 years. But he is trying to put everything together and get veterans the help they need. And I think it goes back to Biden's son dying of a brain tumor after his service. So I think we have a president that lost his son, grieved his son, still grieves his son, that went to Afghanistan and Iraq. And I think that's helping us.
And
okay?
so everybody who's listening right now, I'm not looking to see how many listeners are listening right now. This is helpful to do this 3-way because me and John talk all the time, and me and Denise talk all the time. But when she's talking, like, I went in, it was about a year and a half ago, they did an MRI and found a pocket in my brain. It was fluid, and it has to do with sinuses. It was on the left side above my ear, and it had to do with sinuses. And the guy's like, yeah, you got sinus problems. But he didn't specifically, he gave, like, I got to do a nose thing every day. Is that still considered one of the presumptives filed under that, or does it have to be specifically sinusitis?
It has to be this. There's 3 of them, and I just can't call them to my brain.
Right. I know sinusitis is one, but
yeah, and I think rhinitis is another.
Yes.
And I can't think of the other one. But anyway, check that out, people. The other thing is, if you have not had a good chest X-ray or chest scan. They do more chest scans now. If you haven't had one of those in a while, I would ask your provider to schedule that. Okay?
A chest scan?
Chest, CAT scan, or an X-ray, one of the 2. Okay? Because we are finding problems. Okay? We have been all along. And I think some of you may have read that on some other people's posts. Whether we relate it to DU or whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is finding the physiological damage in your lung. The other thing is that you should ask for, if you didn't have pulmonary function tests before your sleep study, ask for a pulmonary function test.
And those suck. Those are difficult. When you're already when you're already struggling with fatigue, and the guy and you're sitting there breathing, well, obviously, Denise, you know how it works. Kevin, have you ever had one of those done? They're not fun.
I've seen it done. I'm like, oh hell, I don't want everyone. Don't they put you in one of them boxes things?
Yeah,
it's like
it
looks like a tube.
Yeah.
It's
anyway,
hell no.
I had a sleep study years ago. I had pulmonary function tests, 2 of them, one time in the 90s, one time later. Okay. And I said, okay, I kind of ignored these when I had them done. It wasn't gross. It wasn't too bad. And I just said, okay, I can go on and I, keep this in mind. I could maybe get a CPAP, da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
Typical nurse putting it off, I guess. Nurses and doctors are the worst. But anyway, so I said, okay, I've got a good provider. And so I bring things to him and go, hey, I haven't had this done in a long time. So maybe we ought to repeat this.
Right now.
So I had just done the sleep study a month ago, and it was supposed to do the pulmonary function test first and then the sleep study. But one of those orders got dropped. So we did the sleep study, which meant I had to be tested for COVID, of course, as part of it, which I was negative, and I knew that. But then I had to remind him, hey, we never got the pulmonary function test. So he ordered it again, and we got it done. And that was just a week or so ago. So, those are not fun, but you need to have it in your record. You need to think about how often we might need those repeated and updated. There's no standard on that.
Okay, we got a question. Go ahead, John.
Okay.
One of the biggest things, one of the largest things I was diagnosed and given was the chronic fatigue. The beat, you're tired all the time and can't explain it. So we know that we have a fellow vet. Obviously, there's many, but one in particular, Kevin knows who I'm talking about, who was just he was given a 0 for the chronic fatigue, because they wouldn't acknowledge that he was from the Gulf War, and I'm like, I understand, because I asked point blank my provider. I said, well, how the bloody hell does chronic fatigue diagnose? Well, it's a diagnosis of exclusions. Okay, well, how do we do that? What needs to take place to diagnose it that it's not something else? And when my information, she says, okay, here in Iowa, we what was it? What do you call the rheumatologist? We didn't have a rheumatologist in our VA, so they sent it to a civilian provider. They requested my medical records, and they saw that I was. You know what I got for a response? For here's what we can do for you.
What's that?
We got nothing for you. That was my answer. My provider almost wrote it out for me. She goes, they don't have nothing for you. Okay, so there's your diagnosis of exclusion. We don't have an answer after we gone to this rheumatologist. Now, so there you just cleaned up that there's no other answer. So it's a diagnosis of exclusion. We don't have a bloody answer for you. So there's your chronic fatigue, because we don't have any other answer. A lot of men and women don't know that it's well, obviously, Denise, you do, but it's exclude everything else. Well, when you tell me in your Gulf War, I would think that's a blanket. There's your answer.
And it's not. It's not. And
wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. I will direct you what to show your provider. Maybe that'll help.
Okay.
Perfect.
If you in the VA.gov, if you go VA Public Health Gulf War, okay, that section of the VA website lists all the exposures for each war. I'm just giving you a shortcut. VA Public Health Gulf War. You'll see the exposures. The hyperlinks lead you through to our presumptive diagnoses, which list chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, the functional GI, and it should be updated to cover the 3 respiratory. The other thing is the 9 infectious diseases that people don't pay attention to and maybe have never gotten tested.
Hold on. Yeah. Explain that to me.
I'll tell you, one of our guys out in California brought it up. Q fever is one of those. Okay. And he goes back and finds out he had Q fever.
What the hell's Q fever?
Yeah, what's that?
Well, okay. Gee, I can't teach y'all everything.
Yes, you
in a few
can.
minutes.
You are the mama bear of our pages, and I don't want to
Those
hear.
are there's nine infectious diseases. Q fever is only one of 9. Okay. Infectious diseases can be viral, bacterial, what have you. Okay.
Okay.
And we got exposed to all kinds of sand over there, camel crap, goat crap. And you have the sandstorms, okay? Now, the same thing with the DU that gets into the sand, and the chemicals got into the sand. It's called dusty agent, but it has a lot of other crap in there, and you inhale and just. That's how you get exposed.
Okay, so do you ask for the blood work for that? For them to test?
What you need to do is go and read on the VA website about each of those diseases. If you click on them, it gives you a brief thing. If they don't, I will get links to y'all.
Oh, yes. And I'm going to put them on my page.
Basic and not real high level. Okay. I know y'all need it dumbed down, as everybody tells me.
Hey, so Denise, and I don't know if she's already been contacted today, Denise, or not, but I'm bringing this up because earlier I mentioned to Kevin, you got to have your DD-214. If it hasn't already been answered, if the individual, whether it's yourself or somebody else, doesn't have their DD-214, where would you tell them to get a copy of it?
You know what I've been told lately, and at the VA hospital, I've been told they can pull up your DD-214.
Yes, they can. You get on
at the Office of Information Release.
Right. Okay. You can literally walk into the VA, the main hospitals, not your clinics. You go into the main office. Houston has one, and you can walk into the administration
business office.
That's right. The administration part, which is on the 4th floor, if you're in Houston, you can literally request it right then and there, and they'll get it out for you right there. I've heard that.
Well, obviously, you know why I'm asking that specific question, Kevin. And I don't know if her father or herself is watchers had the time. I know there was a Lakers game on, and her dad might be watching that instead of this, which I get. But no, that's important. I know I've got all kinds of copies, but and I appreciate this because I know Denise that you're an RN. My son's an RN, but he's very, very new at it. Clearly, you've got a lot of experience, and you can rattle off all this stuff. But those of us non-medically minded people are like, "What the bloody hell did you just say?"
Hey, I was talking to her yesterday.
Hey, all you have to do is call me, and I take all the time in the world going through it over the phone.
She does. I'm going to tell each and every one of y'all, if Denise wants to put her number out there, I'll let her do it right now. But if you want to get in contact with her, if you have any questions, go to Messenger. Everybody can go to
Well, you got a friend at the connection,
right? Yes,
and I'm under Denise Nichols, and the picture that comes up, because there's some other Denise Nichols, I'm sure. I know there's one, but the picture that comes up of me is up in D.C. Across from the Vietnam Wall is the women's monument that they put up there in D.C., and I'm at the women's monument, and that's me.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because I'd get a lot of calls from other Denise Nichols chewing my butt out.
Well, that's not the same one. Now, you know, I'm nice to you, Kevin.
I know. Now, here's one. Here's a great one. I mean, we got
anyway. They have to friend, and I have to accept. And because then you go to Messenger. If you're not a friend, you can make a message, but you're not sure it's going through.
Now listen to this, both y'all. Y'all tell me what y'all would say if y'all were me. So I did a sleep apnea test because my wife says I gag at night while I'm sleeping. I cough and I gag and I stop breathing. So I go do the sleep apnea. I'm laying down there about the first 20 minutes right before I fall asleep. I hear 3 gunshots. I'm pretty much up the rest of the night. It's 1960 area. And no offense to anybody who lives out there, but it's scary as hell. But anyway, So I'm sitting there, I'm doing the sleep apnea test. I only probably slept 2 hours. Then I had to pee about 12 times. But they told me I didn't have sleep apnea. But they said I do stop breathing, my oxygen gets low, and they want me to put this device in my mouth that helps you open your mouth and sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You can have obstructive sleep apnea, which is the structures of your mouth and the rest of the respiratory. Okay. So obstructive sleep apnea is different from a sleep apnea caused by other reasons.
Right. Which I have GERD, I have hiatal hernia, and all that. So
And they'll
You're a
also
freaking mess.
wait a minute. Wait.
Yeah.
They'll also tell you if you have a restless leg.
What?
Okay.
Okay.
They measure if you're moving your legs when you're sleeping.
Right.
Okay. And then they'll get that report back to your provider. There's 2 medicines they can give you to decrease the restless leg and the sleep. Okay. And so that can be treated. And if you're not moving your legs, you're probably not, you'd sleep better.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I can tell you my legs are all over the place.
So,
I would imagine most people are.
So let me, since I asked the question, or I mentioned CPAP or however the hell it got brought up, I already know, I already know the answer to the question, but Denise, being as you're the medical professional, if a person, I know because it's been on the news, it's been on the VA about if you wear a CPAP, if you have a CPAP, that device that has been explained to cause cancer. And I'll just tell you I was on the phone because I needed a new mask. And I said, what's the deal with this thing causing cancer? And they said, what it is, it's the device that if you have the So Clean, or there's certain devices
certain brands,
if you clean stuff, right. And then the foam that's in surrounding the motor, somehow that foam starts breaking away and you inhale that. And that's what caused problem. I don't use my CPAP. I don't use any water in it. I don't do the steam thing or nothing like that. And I don't use the So Clean. I use this thing called soap and water to clean it and whatnot. So
yeah.
Any information for fellow veterans out there that have heard this, Denise, maybe you can explain it better than what I just said, because I kind of
you just did.
You just did.
Pretty good. You just did it pretty good. That's written up on the VA website also.
Yeah.
You can see the alerts and all that, and they tell you what to do step by step on that problem.
Okay, well, like I said, I happen to be on the phone with a respiratory gal asking questions. I say, tell me about this, explain it. And I know the VA will say, well, you contact such and such for a replacement. No, the VA themselves contacts the manufacturer and will get you put on a list to get the CPAP replaced. Now, I know because of COVID and other things, they said it's going to take a spell. So,
yeah,
but they will do it for you, so you don't have to do it. You don't have to make the phone calls and stuff. So
exactly.
But some people aren't going to know that. I wouldn't have known that unless I would have put in the phone call.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a lot of people on here probably going, "What the heck?" And
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to cover a couple of things before we forget. I've made notes as I listened to y'all, but
I kept running to
I kept running to my bookcase to pull things. I had to look up all the cranial nerves again to refresh my little brain. But anyway, one of the things you talked about was nursing homes.
Yes.
Okay, and there is state level nursing homes separate from your your VA nursing homes. Okay. They also have now people that bought houses and turned them into assisted living. And they have that also through the VA. Okay. So when you're talking about if you need that, you need to talk to them about that. I'll come back to that in a minute. Cough. If you have a cough, it may be caused by your sinus drainage. We are moving into the flu season. You may have sinus drainage at different times of the year, and the cough can be caused by that. But it also is important that you go to the doctor and get it diagnosed, and they're probably going to do a COVID test first just to rule that out. Hey, they got the other stuff now, but anyway,
It hurts. They shove that thing up your nose and
I
they
know,
count to 15, and my nose burns for about 24 hours.
Or you can get the self test at the drugstores now for around they're at manufacturer cost. Okay, anyway, and they're coming out with other tests too. The self test from the pharmacy, from your local drugstore. One of the things I wanted to point out, y'all brought up about taking care of yourself. And when COVID happened, being older than you guys, my husband and I, I said, I really, we put this off long enough. We need to have wills. The last will I had was what we did when we were going overseas to Desert Storm. And I don't know what he had. He was a pilot in the Air Force, so I don't know if he had one in the background somewhere.
Right.
You can you can see if there's time on base if you're a retiree, okay? There may be other people connected with the VA that the business office can tell you maybe. It depends on your area, if they have a lawyer that volunteers to do that or whatever. But I will. But there's also a form that you need to, get. We had ours done by an attorney that was close to our place, and we checked her out and all that. And she said, Denise, you need to get the forms from the VA. And I took a picture of the front of that form and I sent it to Kevin. He's going to post it.
Yes, ma'am.
along with the other books. Now, these books are neat because on the inside folder of this, and I don't think I took a picture of this, it has phone numbers, bereavement counseling, caregiver support, your foreign medical program, headstones and markers, cemetery. It gives you phone numbers. These are the 800 numbers up to DC, most of them. So there's numbers and there's sections of the booklet that describe everything. So these are really good little books to have,
Okay.
Federal benefit for veterans, dependents, and survivors, because if you're rated, then your spouse gets benefits. Your minor children can have benefits.
We got a question for you.
Okay.
So Denise, and I don't know if you're able to or not, because one of the people that we're trying to help out is providing care for her father who is in Desert Storm. Are you able to expand any on? Do you have to be at 100% for caregivers? I looked up some information about what enables you to get help for your loved ones, because maybe you have to work to provide that income, but that caregiver, what position does a person have to be in to get that caregiver support?
Okay, there is a caregiver section on the VA website. That's the other thing. Besides the phone numbers, they have all the websites, all these different things. The caregiver support is www.caregiver.va.gov. And I think Desert Storm are the last ones to be picked up and covered. There is a form that they have to fill out. I haven't done that. I haven't had to do that, but I know it's there. It's available. Get on the computer to help them. And like I said, no matter what your state is, there's a State Department of Veterans Affairs, a whole different set of benefits and help. They know all the federal requirements. And I want to emphasize this. They are really, really good. Okay. They're really trained well. You may have a problem with a county veteran service officer, but you can always go up the ladder to the state level. Okay. That the county is under them. Okay. But they are trained really well. And it's a benefit to the state, to the city, to the town, to the county, economically, that they help and get you all the benefits you need because they're there for you. There may be state benefits also that cross over. I know our state's doing something with helping veterans with cemetery, burial. I don't know what it is yet. I haven't had time to look that up. So these people do not charge. There's an economic benefit that is not there with VFW, DAV, or any of the other service type things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because it affects the economics of the city, the state, the county, the whole bit. So they want to help you, and they train them on all that. I found them to be the best people. You can call them, you can email them. If you go to the va.gov website, scroll on down, and when you get past the, whatever the index, there is another area with little pictures, and one of them's about connecting with your state. Yep. Yeah, link on that, and it takes you to a listing of 50 states. And I think they have the islands too. And you go down there and click on that, and you're going to get the phone number, the website, and all that. You're going to directly go
here's
to
the
the
question.
state.
So Denise and Kevin, now I know everything you're referencing is online, and I understand that, you understand that, Kevin does. But for the men and women out there, maybe that are trying to help, whether it's themselves, maybe they're not computer literate, who would you suggest in your city, in your minds, would be the best person?
Ooh.
Let's say I'm not good with computers and I need to go talk to a person, and it's not Kevin or it's not Denise. Who do I go to?
I want to answer this one. I want to answer this one, Denise, and tell me if I'm correct.
Okay.
You got two people that literally you could talk to, two different groups. VFW is one, but let me tell you, I've already dealt with this with one of my customers, that her grandmother needed a place to go in a nursing home and all this. I told her to get a hold of my Texas State Veterans Officer, your state veterans officer. That's what they're there for. They're there.
And that in Texas, it's called the Texas Veterans Commission.
Yes, the Texas Veterans Commission. Every state has, New York, every state has a Veterans Commission. That's who y'all need to get a hold of. That's who you would need to do. But I got an idea, Denise and John. I got a really good idea. I'm going to spend a whole segment. No. Listen, I'm going to spend a whole segment in December of running my ass off to the VA, sitting down with them, and I'm going to get every packet I can get. I'm going to bring it on this show. That's what I think. I think needs to be done. I know there's a lot of people out there be like, oh damn, I didn't know, because you just told me a whole bunch of things I didn't have a clue about.
Well, Texas Veterans Commission, I would assume they have their own book.
They do.
I know I have the California one for California. I know Florida has a whole book, and it's even more in detail than the federal one. I mean,
right.
There's more pages to it.
Well, I'm going to do federal and state. Does that I'll do my state and I also do the federal, but I'm going to do a whole segment, even if it has to be a 2-part, because that way people can go back and say, wait, I heard this, and they can hear it and everything.
Well, what we can do also, and I've gone through this on a couple of pages, okay?
Uh-huh.
But I walked them through on everything about VA website, okay?
Right.
Which included this book that I'm telling you about, okay? And so I gave them the links. I gave all these links one by one. I went through. I said, click on every daggum post I make. I'm going to take you through the benefits for dependents, for caregivers. I mean, here's the links.
Right.
And that is the fastest way, I think, to get it out. And the state probably has a link to their pamphlet and their material, because it's costly to put all these pamphlets together, okay, and booklets. But anyway, I sent you pictures of the California veterans and the federal one. I don't know where my up-to-date one is, but I'm sure I have one around here somewhere.
Oh, I'm getting an up-to-date one. But
I have every year.
I think I mean, tell me, John and Denise, tell me if y'all think I'm wrong. I'm gonna go through and do a segment on just about this one thing. Then I'm gonna do another segment on just this one thing. I'm gonna dummy it down for people like me, and kind of explain. Okay, guys, let's go over. Okay, burial. Okay, let's go over. Spouses. Let's go over.
Well, I would say you're doing a great job with the interviews by the veterans. And like your one today, we brought up about caregiver. We
Right.
brought up about nursing homes. We brought up about the state veterans level veterans affairs in their state.
Right.
We brought up about cemetery and all that. So you're touching on this as you go through. And
That's
what we
true.
can do is after we have it on the Facebook page, and you can probably put it on a podcast too, is when we've noticed these things and have a website, we put it in the comments
That great. That awesome. That's a good idea.
because otherwise we're missing out with hearing the veteran's voice. And as I told you, I thought up on the hill they would bring in, the VA and DOD and everybody else, all the agencies, whatever. And then they would bring in the president of the or the commander of the national VFW, the commander of whatever, And I said, listen, you need to get to the veterans. Okay. I want to see the veterans at that table.
Just like I want to get
Okay.
the veterans on here.
That's exactly right.
Good point.
And by doing this, you're getting a lot of attention. Okay. And so this word's going to spread. Okay. We got the first two Desert Storm vets that had ALS. I got up to testify. Okay. I didn't give much voice. I said, you're going to bring them and their families too, because they need it now. They need the attention. You should have seen the VA crawling over themselves to get to them. There wasn't a dry eye in the house that time. And the whole audience, it was quiet. You could hear a pin drop. And you look around, you see a few tears. Okay. So, and when we had the general out of Carolina that took it across the board and got ALS for any veteran, I was at the testimony table next to him with his all powerful wheelchair with respiratory support and all that. And he came because he had gotten it, found out we had gotten it for the Desert Storm, and he took it for all vets because he had contacted and had contacts with even ones that non-deployed, so any vet. And he had already worked the phones to DC and everything he could do long distance. He was amazing, okay?
That's
And he
great.
was a retired general. He was using every effort in his body. If y'all ever knew an ALS victim, their effort on breathing, their effort on travel, their
Wow.
effort on speaking. I mean, he was using that general voice. And I was sitting there going, wow, he is committed to doing this. This is his mission.
I got
And
He's got a question.
a
okay, go
question,
ahead.
Denise. You're talking although my mom wasn't in the military, she passed away from ALS, so I'm all too familiar with that horrible disease does to a person. My comment was going to be, or my question rather, Denise, Kevin, for the individuals, veterans, what are some of the first things? I'm kind of, this is a little bit off, it's in subject, but I guess when men and women are trying to figure out what's going on, what are the first, what are some of the first symptoms that you've come to realize these are one of the first symptoms of illness for a person that has
okay,
Gulf War?
I got it. Okay. Number one, when I started and put my phone number out when we came home, it's been 30 years of this for me, guys. But I would take them through, okay, what were you like before the war? What are you noticing in your life? The smell, the taste came out. I kind of, I didn't want to guide them, but I'd say, okay, let's start at your head. are you being able to function normally? I mean, spelling. Have you had a problem spelling? Have you had a problem with grammar and you used to do well at it, you know? How about math or figuring out bills or balancing check account, whatever, you know? It was back then before a lot of it was electronic.
Well,
Okay.
hell, no wonder why my doctor's always asking me, son of a gun. I just now realize this, that when, not the doctor, but when the RN comes in, the RN always asks me, how are you doing budgeting money? How are you doing? You just said exactly what the hell my RN says. I'm gonna go. I gotta go hug that guy. My first my first symptom was 3 months. I started bleeding out my nose,
Yeah.
my ears,
Yeah.
and
And we
believe it
talked
or not,
about that.
I still every periodically I'll wake up and have blood on my pillow, but we don't know where it came from.
Well, we've talked about the bleeding, the hypercoagulation. Okay, you and I've had that discussion.
Oh
Maybe we'll have
yes,
to have it. Maybe we'll have to have it on air.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it goes out to everybody in podcast. But anyway, um, so I saw what we were dealing with in theater, and in theater, I picked up some symptoms. They were weird things. Okay, I had been and I was activated, so I was in a reserve unit. I'd been in the reserve unit for a long time after I left active duty. So I knew these people. I knew
And
them.
Denise,
We
you're
were a
Army, right?
flying
Or Air Force? Army?
Air Force. So I
Okay,
was in a
sorry.
flying unit. So we
Okay.
not only had our weekend that we had to do, we had to be on the plane and qualified at more often than 30 days. We were up there flying missions and training. Okay. So I noticed some of the things when I was over in theater, like I knew some of these people very well. And some of them were, what do you call it? When you're giving grief to your officer, insurrection, not insurrection. That's not the word.
I know what you're talking about.
Insubordinate.
Yeah,
I
Oh,
had a
I know
female
that word
that
too.
I had a female that I knew, and she wasn't that way back home. Never. Okay. And I'm
so
going, okay, what's
so
going on
anger
here?
management problems.
No, it wasn't PTSD. Okay. This can be related to oxygenation of the brain, your neurological functioning, reasoning. I had a parent call me, you know, I heard about you and I'm calling you and I need help. And I go, what's going on? Her son had served, had 2 degrees. Good grades, kids. I mean, good grades. Okay. He wasn't able to hold a job. He was working at Burger King.
I heard these
Okay.
stories. Yeah, I heard stories just like this.
Any kind of job just to have money. Okay. So we went through it. She knew somebody that could do the, the IQ testing, that kind of thing. She had gotten an IQ test and it had fallen. I mean, he had IQ tests from before and it was just horrifying. Okay. It really was horrifying. I could pick it up if people were emailing me. And if I had talked to them and I knew what they did in life in the military or civilian, what their education level had been, and I'd go, are you having trouble? I was taking those as examples. People couldn't spell words that they used to be able to spell. They couldn't form sentences. Okay. I mean, I taught nursing students, so I had to grade papers. So I taught patients, I taught nursing students, a little bit of everything I've done. And so I could kind of say, what's going on? What's the problem here? Okay. Or their memory, or getting lost in their own surroundings. Okay. Hometown, done that route forever, but they get disoriented and lost.
I've done that.
Or they have, or what we were having early on was 1-car accidents.
Say again.
Not 1-car accident, like the veteran driving.
A 1-car accident. And
Yeah.
so can I use this though as an excuse to my wife when I forget my milk? I'm just wondering. I mean,
Well, like I said, I think I said this before when we've been talking after you interviewed today,
yes.
was that if when the wives were speaking up and going, "What is going on?" I send them to the grocery store to maybe get 3 or 4 items, and I'm lucky if I get one back.
That exactly. I'm
Don't
making
forget
my
to take
wife
the damn
listen to
list.
this. That's right. I'm making my
You
wife listen
have
to this.
you have to give them a list.
Yes.
I
Then they
don't care if
forget the
it's
damn
2 or
list.
3. Yeah, give them a list.
Uh,
The other thing that happened, I'm telling you, I'm not using names, okay? I had a wife call me, and her husband had gone into truck driving, okay, and was having trouble. I mean, we had to get him out of truck driving. I mean, it was not going well, okay. But she called me one time, and she was upset, and I said, "Well, what's going on? You know, I'm here, got open ears, you know." I woke up, and he was in my purse looking at my driver's license. And I asked him why. Now they had been married decades, right? And he said, "I couldn't remember your name."
oh wow.
Okay, so to on some
So
of the
all
first
the
things. So we definitely, you pointed out the smell, the memory problems. I know gastrointestinal problems are, you can't, for example, when I told you I went to Iowa City trying to get diagnosed, the doctor says, well, where's the pain? Is it over here? Is it over there? I said, when I eat food, as that food's traveling through my digestive system, wherever that food's at in my stomach, that sends pain signals to my brain. And so it was all over the place. So gastrointestinal problems. And at that time, they said, here, take an old antidepressant called amitriptyline. That worked great for a few short years. Then my body adjusted. And as you know, Denise, your body, whatever the hell's in our systems, our body adapts when you're trying to correct the malfunction. And it's like, oh, yeah, that ain't going to work anymore. Try again. But so we got smell, we got memory, we got digestive issues, and
respiratory.
So
all the blood stuff is all the organs, kidney stones from the calcium. Yeah. Okay, because I feel I haven't had this figured out in research yet, but my theory is that calcium is leaving your bony surfaces, just like you may be breaking bones easier. Okay, people having to have more surgery with hip or legs or whatever, but it started early with degenerative disc disorder, okay, DDD. And that comes sometimes with age and your activity, like infantry. Paratroopers are going to be more inclined to have that earlier.
Can't imagine why. Hauling all that rucksack around, and let's jump out of a good plane and hit the ground with how much weight on our bodies.
Is that considered a presumptive?
No. Okay. You have to do a nexus. You will have to have
a nexus.
Yeah, you'd have to have the specialty doctor to write up a nexus. There are veteran lawyers out there, and part of what you get from them is if they have these specialists, they're paying the specialist, or you are. It's part of what they're getting out of you. Okay.
Hey, Denise, can you expand what you mean? Because I made a comment when I was on the podcast list. I said I didn't need a nexus letter. So can you do me a solid and expand on what exactly that I don't need it.
Okay. You do not need it.
You
do not need it for a presumptive. Okay.
Okay.
Any presumptive, you do not need a nexus letter.
But what is the nexus letter? Those people who don't know.
It's basically you go to a doctor, a specialty doctor, and he's going to go through all your testing that you've had or that he needs to go ahead and do some to rule out anything else, okay? So that he knows what he's dealing with. And then he will write a letter. And if you give him information of what you've done in the military and what you can figure out that may relate to, okay, like, hearing loss, tendonitis. If you're dealing with generators all the time, if that was your job in the military, you dealt with all the generators. or if you were on the noisy 130 and didn't use ear protection. And you did that for years. Okay.
So it's a letter from your provider saying that this individual was involved in this.
Not your provider. You're going to need a specialty. Okay. Like orthopedic.
That's why I asked,
Orthopedic.
because I didn't know.
Okay, I'm clarifying. It would be any specialty relating to what you're trying to do for connecting other issues from your military service.
That makes sense.
And
okay.
I recommend, now, people may have different opinion, but our presumptives, I say, stick with your presumptives. Okay. Then after you get that through, then you can look at other things that could be connected by secondary, like the sleep apnea, or by a nexus letter development. And that's using your specialist. It really, that really helps when you have a lawyer with a whole list of specialists he sends people to.
No, thank you.
If you're doing,
thank you for explaining that. Now, John's going to be a little bit annoying because I know you're repeating yourself, Denise, but
okay,
because I didn't know, I know there's other people that don't know, when you use, and I've used the word and Kevin's used it, presumptive. I know what it means. You guys know what it means. What does it mean to those who don't know?
Okay, the way, I'll start at the beginning. The way we got anything to start with, okay, up on the Hill, we had to get a legislative effort going, okay? And the closest thing we had to compare with our symptoms at that time, and still now we know there's differences, but civilian chronic fatigue syndrome, which now has a new name, is called ME. I won't go into the new name, but they've done more research for them and that kind of thing for civilians. That started in the late 70s into the 80s. You may have seen a Golden Girl episode with the one that had been military, and she was so frustrated getting help, and she finally got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. It was on one of the TV shows. And that was a step forward for them. At least you're naming something, okay? It's not a known diagnosis, but that's what they named it. The other thing was fibromyalgia. So those were the closest people. Fibromyalgia is all the pains and pain triggers you have in your body.
Right.
Okay, I guess I really did. I've heard the term, but I really couldn't tell you what it meant. But okay.
Well, I'm trying to keep it dumbed down here, guys.
I appreciate that.
So anyway, and both chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, is the rheumatologists are the ones best known to handle that problem. Now, I'm gonna kind of parallel this, okay? We had researchers early on that may have been involved with AIDS research. There's one I know of that has multiple degrees. And when it got kind of solved with antivirals and, they weren't dying as fast and bad and all that, she took up the next mystery in medicine was the civilian chronic fatigue group. Okay? This was Dr. Klimas down in Florida. She had a clinic for them at University of Florida, Miami. She was a rheumatologist, so she was seeing patients. They're not there every day when they're a specialist. Depends how many consults they have to do. Okay. So she was seeing us peer over at the VA when we came home. She knew something's wrong with them. So that's why a lot of our researchers that we've gotten funded through the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program are those that were involved with the chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. Okay. And, normal doctors don't know it. Okay. I'm sorry, they don't know it. But there's been brain scan work done. Everything we're going through now, we have them able to look at chronic fatigue, and then us would go forward. Dr. Bronick at Georgetown is one of them that knows there's differences. Okay. Because he was involved with the research for chronic fatigue and fibro up at Georgetown. That's how I found him, reading research, okay? And I went, wow, he's got a a good study here. I'm impressed. I got to call him. I recruited him. Okay. And he had a paper that blew my mind on the spinal fluid and looking at the proteomics of that. And I went, ooh, this is high level. We need
fluid?
this guy. Proteomics of the spinal fluid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we went, those of us that went into his first study, since I had recruited him, and going to the VA RAC meeting, I got to know everybody. So, if I had something good going on that I'm going to go, whether I have to pay for the travel or not, I'm saying, guys, get into this, follow me. This is what we have to do. This is what we have to do to learn what is really physiologically damaged, how we're going to find it. Okay. And we didn't get started till we got fed up with VA because they were researching PTSD and stress, yoga, acupuncture. Okay. And we said, oh my God, give me a break.
Yeah. Let's get, what was your question, John?
Well, I was, so I asked point blank, what does presumptive, that actual term mean? And I think
I kind of jumped over that.
I think the answer is real simple. It's the fact presumptive means you were in theater. It's presumed that since you were there, that's why you have the problems.
Now, that's called dumbing it down. That is called dumbing it down.
Yeah. Okay. But you have to have in the provider's note that you've had chronic fatigue. You complain of fatigue or tiredness or pain or whatever. You try to be as descriptive with what your symptoms are. And you try to get him to put exactly your words into his progress note.
Okay.
Because you have to have all this for chronic nature, 6 months or longer.
So that comment, Denise, about in the notes and telling the providers goes to, let's change it up a little bit. Let's talk about this, if you don't mind, real briefly. Let's talk about Kevin, the gentleman that we're trying to help, that his daughter takes him to a CMP exam, and they say, well, what do I say during a CMP exam? And I told her, I said, you got to be honest with him. If you're going to a CMP exam, you're telling, why are you there? How you doing today, sir? Well, I'm not doing so good, or ma'am, I'm not doing so good. You're not lying. It's as if you're explaining to them, and they're looking at you as soon as you walk in the door of wherever it is you're going to get a compensation and pension exam. That's what CMP stands for. When you go in to wherever it is they send you to, you're being looked at, you're being analyzed the minute you walk through the door. And the last CMP exam I went into, I walked through the door and there's cameras looking right at me, and the gal sitting behind the desk, the receptionist, was asking me questions. How you doing today, sir? Well, I'm not doing so good. You don't want to go in there and say, well, it's a great day out, the sun's shining, blah, blah, bullshit. Okay. You're in there to tell them what you're suffering from. So Denise, Kevin, I'm asking for those who don't know.
Something else before that. Something before that. Before you get to the CMP exam, when you're going to either a civilian provider or to the provider at the VA, you want your complaint into the physician's progress notes, okay? And you want to get copies of those. You go down to the Freedom of Information, and you can ask for your own records. So ask for the physician progress notes, any lab work, any diagnostic studies, scans, tests, whatever, okay, chest x-ray. You ask whenever that's done, and take it as it comes. I go right down to the office. I have the forms, and I'll fill it out ahead of time with what I need, either date-wise or whatever. And I hand it to the person, and if it's something short and sweet, they can pull it up and print it out and hand it to me. If it's more involved, then I say, hey, I can't wait. I've got to go. Got other things to do. Here's the form. Do you need anything else? Any other info? And can you mail it to me? And they've always mailed it. You can get it in paper, electronically, sent to your email, or a disc. Okay. So you get the starting of all that with your physician or your provider, because when you go to your CMP exam, they're supposed to have already reviewed all your medical records.
And they don't.
They don't.
Well,
they don't. They don't.
you can ask them, have you seen my medical records?
Yeah.
Ask
But then, because I had it done to me, then that person sits there and basically, I don't want to say interrogates you, but wants you to come out of your mouth. When did you start feeling like this? Have you ever had this problem? Have you ever had that problem? It's like you got to go over everything again.
Okay, I'm telling you how to short circuit this. I made copies of all my records before I ever got to a CMP exam. And I copied when I was called to go into a CMP exam. Guess what? I brought my briefcase, my, like your manuals being a pilot or whatever. I had a bigger briefcase on wheels, and I brought it and I'd pull things out, and say, here it is. And the funny thing was, he never laid a hand on me. I don't even think he took a blood pressure on the last one. But then I mentioned chronic fatigue syndrome that I've been diagnosed. Well, he goes, I don't know much about that. And I know Dr. So-and-so down at National Jewish. I said, I know him too. I've talked to him. I've used other doctors in other locations that knew him too. So I'm aware of that. But listen, this is chronic fatigue syndrome. Here's my documentation. And I'd tell them, I cannot function like I used to. I had to step out of my nursing because I knew I was being affected. And I know other nurses that were military over there that they were kind of job hopping. And if we talked to each other over the phone, yeah, there was errors happening. So they were job hopping around.
And just let y'all know, we got about 3 more minutes, but I got my mile marker. But anyway, this is what I do, everybody. And I want to say, Marcy, thank you for saying exactly what you just said. Make a copy, highlight it, and you can leave it with the CMP exam, because that's
you can
what
use
I
the
did.
same thing when you put your claim in.
And
so you're going to assume they maybe have not looked at your record. They don't have that. Take it with you.
Right. And just to let everybody know, when you walk in to do a CMP exam, even if you're feeling fine for that day, if you're feeling great, don't go in there saying, oh, I'm feeling great today, because right there just failed you. And I've literally had them tell me that.
You have to tell them how you felt every, for a whole sequence of time.
That is correct. So this
I'm doing kind of okay today, but I'm struggling.
There you go.
This is why I'm struggling.
There you go.
I had to drive over here across town, and I almost, I had trouble. I don't have my husband's car that connects to the directional thing. I'm going, oh shit, I made a couple of wrong turns. I'm running late, and I'm going, hey, this is how I function now, and that's not normal.
Right. But I was going to tell each and every person out there, because we're going to be wrapping this up, but everything that we're doing today, that we're talking about, you think it's basic. It's not. None of this is basic. It's something that you learn over time, and you learn by doing this. 3 people sitting around, which I hope they're sitting down, because I'm sitting down, and talking and getting the word out there. And just to let y'all know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, on this, on Sundays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, correct? Or is it Eastern?
No, it's Eastern Time.
Okay. 7 on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Denise goes on a show, and I'm going to let her just briefly just say the date and the time it comes on, okay?
Yeah, it comes on every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and what we do is I pre-tape it, but I want everybody to know, this was an hour donated to us. We don't pay for it or any way, or we paid, okay? Gary Knowles is kind of a health guru that's out there. You may see him on your public radio or public TV, okay? And he set up this radio network. Now, I may not agree with all those other people talking on his radio network, okay? It's called Progressive Radio Network, PRN, Progressive Radio, not public radio, progressive radio. And we can send the link on the side effects.
Yeah.
But it's every Sunday. And sometimes I'll replay programs. Like I've interviewed the coordinators for like University of California, San Diego with Dr. Galam. I've interviewed Roskamp a number of times. we have Dr. Layla on. We have David Patterson on. I've done a lot of programming with them because I love them. I love all of our people. I've had Boston University I've had on. I have not gotten Dr. Bronick at Georgetown, and I have not gotten Dr. Klimas because I want Klimas or the clinical coordinator. We all know Jimmy, and Jimmy's been on the air with Kevin. Okay, he's also been on podcasts with Max Facto, and so he's great. But I want to talk to the coordinator so that you recognize the voice when we tell you who to call to get into the study. That's going to be the person you're talking to.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good.
And we
go
through like how much time does it take? How much am I going to get paid as an honorarium? Is there any travel fund? Is anything that would exclude me from being in this study?
Right.
Okay,
right.
being a cancer diagnosis, something else. Okay, so we go through everything they're going to be going through when they talk to you to interview you to accept you into a research study. So that's why I like to get the clinical coordinators that you're going to get when you call. You're not going to be talking to the researcher at that time. You're not going to be talking to Jimmy at that time. You're going to be talking to who you're going to meet when you go down there. They're going to schedule you, accept you into the study. They're going to schedule you. That's who you meet, person to person. You'll also meet the researcher probably. But the clinical coordinator, that's, their mid-level of what you're dealing with. So I've done those. I've done some programs myself. I've interviewed a couple of vets, a number of Navy guys.
A really good looking one too. I mean, I know he's really good looking.
Yeah, I
comes
just
on
did Kevin.
this Sunday.
I did Kevin. Kevin has adopted me. I've adopted him. So I said, okay, you get to do my program. I've done some programs all by myself. Okay. And that's hard. I'm used to being a professor. I taught nursing, clinical, and didactic. And so I can do it. I used to do it all the time. But now it's kind of, I don't want to do that today. Maybe I should pull up one of the old programs and replay it. We haven't filled up that study yet.
But now here's the other thing. So as I got to wrap up. I'm getting my cue over here. But
let me wrap up one thing.
Okay,
guys, we're learning about the physiological damage by going to our research that we fought to get every year, starting with 2006 when we got the congressionally directed. Now, there is no guarantee because every year we have to fight for the funding, okay? And there's some silly things going on up at the Hill that I don't want to go into. When it happens, we'll let you know. But myself, Anthony, are really depressed.
Right.
Because we have fought so hard every year to know this stuff is going on up at the Hill, and we've tried to use every way we can to short circuit what they're planning. But anyway, we don't know. But you need to grab these opportunities with these researchers. Once you go to their facility, yes, it's a pain in the butt, but this is all built into their budget that they have to put in when they ask to have a review of their proposal that can be 200 to 300 pages, okay? And they go through multiple review panels. Then they have to go through contracting. And yes, we're getting defense approach money, okay? And that was a program set up by a senator's wife that was interested in veterans and cancers that started way back in 93. We didn't know about that. We didn't know there was another way to get funding. We had to go back and forth to the Hill going, we can't do this anymore. VA's not doing, they're doing stress research, and we need to know how the exposures have affected us physiologically. This is hard medical research: blood, urine, spinal fluid, sputum, brain scans. stool specimens. Oh yeah, we're doing stool. I got paid $50 for shipping off my stool. We've got that going at Texas A&M. Dr. Shetty down there is getting into the gut-brain connection. We have one up Chatterley or something like that is his last name, up in Carolinas at their medical school involved. So yeah, we're getting into the gut problems. we've done all the brain stuff, I think, and we're doing every level we can, and we're trying to find how we can really have in the future diagnostic test that if you went into the VA, they would have something to test you to say, yeah, you have this problem from your exposures.
Right.
Here's the lab work. Okay. But it takes hard medical research to get there. And if you go and you're participating, we'll get a published study. You'll be part of the group. You can read that study and I can interpret it. I can dumb it down for you
Thank
to
goodness.
some degree. And you are making a contribution not only for yourself to have more knowledge about what's really wrong with you, but you are representing the rest of us. Okay. And that's really important. That's why I'll sell it with this. President Carter's alive because of cancer research. Okay. That's why he's 90 something years old and still alive.
Yeah.
That's why Cheney, who was vice president with Bush,
Yep.
was that his? Well, he's a walking cardiac research that came from cardiac research. All of his catheterizations that were done, the bypasses, the artificial heart, his mechanical heart. he's a walking recipient of research. For men, you have an annual, or whenever you have it done, your PSA testing. Okay, women have mammograms and that kind of stuff. Okay, you have a blood test that they do, PSA. Okay, that's your prostatic screening. Okay, and that was developed through this kind of hard biomedical research. So now there's a commercialized test that you can find out if you have prostatic cancer, and you can be treated as soon as you find out, and you can overcome and conquer prostatic cancer that wasn't conquered before. Okay. And they measure your PSA while you're doing the treatment to know that it's working.
Yeah.
So that's how medicine works, guys.
And that's
So
what.
next
Did I
week,
dumb it down? Did I dumb
So
it
next
down
week-
far enough?
Yes.
So
Go
next
ahead,
week,
John.
Kevin, you're gonna start putting some more information together. I greatly appreciate everything both of y'all are doing. Really, I mean, because Denise, sounds like you've done just a tremendous amount of research, and Kevin, I know that you're all in it, and I'm kind of learning, and I'm enjoying the opportunity to help another vet, which y'all are doing exactly that, and I thank you so very much.
Hey, and
But we're lending expertise and telling you where you can get materials so that you can help other vets,
that's
whether they're
right.
Desert Storm or Vietnam. I've met Vietnam vets that didn't know diabetes was a presumptive for them.
Well,
Didn't know their cardiac was a presumptive for them.
right. And everybody listen to these three voices right here. We're not going to let y'all give up. We're not giving up. Let's don't give up. As I've always said, you can come onto my program. I want you to tell your story. If I don't have the answer, I damn well will tell you Denise will have the answer. Okay?
Or at least I'll have a lead on it.
That's right. And so, I mean, contact me at kevinsimon@go4sideeffects.com. Email me. If you don't want to tell your story, but you want your story to be heard, I'll tell your story for you.
It may be your wife
That's right. I mean, it's
or your adult kid.
that's right. And also, before I let everybody go here, I thank John, Denise, Chris for being on here. I mean, I'm telling you, everybody that is in here. And Marcy, thank you for listening. Jay, thank you for listening. I could go on and on and on forever. But anyway, thank y'all for listening. But
And be sure and put comments down if you're on Facebook watching.
There's a whole
live.
bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them. And
Okay.
like and share.
Exactly.
That's it. If you like and share, this segment, or you like and share the podcast, I mean, you can find the podcast just about everywhere: Amazon, Apple, Spotify. I know I said Apple, YouTube, everything. Like and share it. The more people know, the more stuff's gonna get done. But they don't teach this in high school. They don't. What we went through. They don't. 3 days.
They don't.
Look, there's a storm.
How many of y'all listen and comment on his page today? Okay. Did you get the TAPS program when you got off active duty or active service if you were a reserve guard? Because that's something that was developed after us, I think.
Right.
And
right.
they had classes and they go through a lot of the benefits and everything.
Exactly.
We got none of that.
That's right. You? No, I didn't get nothing. The only thing I got is good luck, get your ass home.
Now, the other thing,
welcome, Navy.
We're delinquent if we don't also go on the VA websites because they have Facebook pages and they do virtual training and the audio visual too. And you can share those. If you listen to one and you go, hey, that's good.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Share those. Okay.
And so, I mean, pretty much what I'm saying is you know what? There's always somebody out there to help you. I'll be there. To me, this is a veteran family and a military family. But thank both of y'all for coming on the program, and this will be a 2 parts, just to let y'all know.
Yeah, we'll probably continue.
We'll do
more
over
tomorrow
two
night, right,
hours,
Kevin?
but which is great. We'll be working. My producer will be working on this. I promise you.
Yeah.
But
hey, Kevin,
thank you very much.
Kevin,
yes.
Kevin, hold on. One more thing that I didn't know, but in this bill that they pushed forward on a social spending plan, the chairman of the House Veterans Affairs came down and talked, and I've got to pull up the bill now. But there's stuff in there for VA.
Yes, and I'm gonna put that up on the website, on the Facebook page.
And I was not aware until I looked up on the TV, and he was speaking at the podium today, and I went, wait a minute.
I missed it myself. But
and so I'll try to find that on C-SPAN on tape and send it to you so you can post it. But he was saying, listen, there's things in here that we haven't been able to fund for the VA, and it will help our veterans. So there's a lot in the social spending plan that has not been covered. And the bills are so big. So I wanted to throw that in because it happened in front of our eyes today.
Yeah, and we didn't see it, But thank you, Denise, for everything you're doing for us.
Well, thank you, and thank the other Desert Storm vets. And that's what we're all about. And each of you can help forward the information, share the information. That's how we multiply.
Yep, this program is growing, and I expect it to grow really quick. That's my goal. But thank you, Denise. You have a great night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a great night, Denise.
Hey, good night, everybody.
All right.
Night.
Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
I hung up with Denise real quick. I want to give you a very heartfelt thank you because you stayed just like Denise in contact with me. And I know me and you have become buddy now. So we're definitely going to stay in contact, but really a heartfelt thank you very much. Okay.
Oh, my pleasure. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for doing this.
No problem. And and I promise y'all, and I will make a promise to y'all, I'm not going to stop podcasting, but I need y'all's help and your support by liking and sharing this so we can keep this program going and get more listeners. And I want to reach, this is my goal. You spread the word out there. This time next year, I want 1 million listeners. And that's my goal. And that's what I'm setting it high. You have a great night, brother.
You too. Take care.
Good night, everybody. Y'all, please go to my website at goal4sideeffects.wordpress.com or email me at kevinsimon@goal4sideeffects.com. And please help support this podcast and the veterans by clicking on the link below. Thank you for your support.